Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. I'm going to take up a few more of your questions in another segment of Ask Judy. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. A reminder that Mary McDonough, Cammie Kotler, and I will be at the Working Women's Conference in St. Louis, February 14 through 16 at the St. Charles, Missouri Convention Center. We'll be part of the weekend of events. We'll be doing breakout sessions. We'll just be sharing our own stories about being working women ever since we were children, and the balancing of life with family and work and all of that, and doing what we can to help empower all of you in your lives. And we'll also be talking and answering questions, of course, about the Waltons, and there to meet and greet people. So we hope if you're close enough or available to come out, that you will come join us that weekend. There are details on the website and tickets are available there. So hopefully some of you will be able to come out and see us. This question is from Egg Cup, who said, in the prophecy from season 4, John tells his female classmate, Rachel, that he has 4 boys and 2 girls. I can't believe no one involved in the production caught that. So I looked back at that episode, and this is another case of sometimes the way a line is delivered and the speed or the inflection or the way it sort of gets a bit swallowed or something like that, where it can be misheard. When I looked back at it, and again, this is just my ears, which I don't vouch for 100%, but it does sound to me like he does say 4 boys and 3 girls.
Olivia, yeah, I sure did.
Kids?
4 boys and 3 girls.
But again, it's a little thrown away, 4 boys, 3 girls. I mean, it was, and something about it, I can see how it could sound like 2. I leave it to all of you to see, what do you think you hear? Do you hear 3? Do you hear 2? Do you hear 6? Anybody got 10? Anyway, so that was just me listening to it and what I thought happened there, but I've been wrong before. This is from Christopher Hauser, who said, did anyone wear like a hearing aid on stage so the cast could hear their part like singers do, or had to wear a microphone? I've done quite a bit of theater, and usually I have never worn earpieces because they weren't the type of concert things where I needed that. Usually they'll wear those so that they can be in sync sometimes with tracks and a whole band, or they just hear differently through those. And it's probably a certain type of mix that helps them follow the music, because sometimes what you can hear is a little funky when you're doing something live. So I've never had an earpiece. I have worn a lot of body mics for shows, and those are typically, it's a mix. In some shows, they hide them. They'll be up like at the hairline, or they'll be tucked back. I wore a lot that were like taped to the side of your face, and you just kind of used mic tape, which was kind of invisible, and with the makeup, and they were very small, so they weren't all that obvious, but you could still see we were wearing them. But no surprise, the audience knows you're being mic'd. And then you've got a mic pack that is somehow tucked into your clothes someplace. And but for the Waltons, when we were inside the sound stages, almost never did we wear body mics. But when we were outside, we did a lot of times, because we were doing a lot of wider shots. And so a boom mic or mics couldn't get close enough to get good sound. So anytime something was going to be a little further away, they would throw a body mic on. It also meant that they could get cleaner sound from the actor. The boom mic was going to be picking up all kinds of other external noise, street traffic, freeways that were nearby, other filming that was going on the lot, anything like that could be heard much easier on the back lot. Airplanes, but you couldn't get rid of the airplane sound. You had to just do it again. So those types of things. So we did wear those body mics. In that case, they were hiding them, and usually, again, the pack would be someplace, in tuck. We'd have these elastic sort of belts that then would have a pouch that they'd slip the microphone into, so you'd wear that. And then they had an antenna that had to be taped in the back. So they'd use like duct tape, and tape that to the back of your shirt, dress, whatever. And then the microphone would come around to the front and usually be someplace like up here or right, sort of, centered, and again, taped to your clothes. So yeah, a lot of that type of stuff. And then, sometimes they had to come change the batteries, and sometimes we'd forget the mics were on, and we'd be having conversations and that weren't really meant to be shared, but only the sound person had ears in to be able to, he monitored mics on and off. So they were very professional. So, but we joke periodically when we were having a conversation and someone would go, "Oh, do you have a mic on?" So who knows what sound people hear? They hear all kinds of things. Same thing with theater. Sometimes people go off stage and all those mics, actors don't have a way to turn them on and off when they come on and off stage. So that is up to the sound person up in the booth. And they do their best to get those mics up when people are coming in and off as soon as people leave. But you don't want to turn on the wrong mics or turn off the wrong mics. And so sometimes there was a bit of a delay. So actors had to learn in theater that when you exit, don't start talking, don't keep talking, don't go, "Oh, wow, look what just happened." Just be quiet for a little bit. And sometimes a mic would accidentally get left on. You'd hear somebody in a dressing room or somebody in a bathroom or whatever. So those are the types of things where, that can happen with mics. A question here from Yoshi Ekamura, who was asking about something in the yearning when Daddy went upstairs with Elizabeth and the new dress and had to talk with her that Cammy's right ponytail keeps moving. It's in front, then it's in back, and in front and in back. And I did look at that sequence, and that was a tricky one for the editors and for Cammy, because the way her braids are, they're just hitting sort of at the shoulder, and they're so thick that they don't just lay there. So if she would turn, it would kind of, the braid might flip back. And so she's looking in the mirror and the braid is back, and then she turns around and she moves to another spot, which would have been a different camera setup. Now the braids are in front, but she did move. So you're like, okay, I can kind of buy that. Well, then she went back to the mirror, and then the braid was in front again. But you did see at one point as she's there that when she kind of moved, the braid moved in the shot. So very tough for the editor and for the script person to, on what line, and if you're then doing a close-up. So she turns around again, Ralph turns her around, and the braid moves. And so it was a tricky one. Yeah, those are just, there's only so much you can do. And there's a point where the performance takes priority over the technical thing of where's the braid. You always want to give precedence to and priority to a performance. And then because of time, if they had all day to shoot that. But still, some actors, Ralph Sinensky has talked about, there's some actors that are better on the first take and some that are better after multiple takes. So it's always going to be about the performance. And if the performance is, you're engaged in it as an audience, and even if you notice the braids, I'm betting you didn't really care. So, but yes, I love the moving braid. I got a smile out of that too. This question is from Doreen Garcia, who said, on season 8, episode 18, that would be the inspiration, Miss Mamie was in the recipe room. But the recipe room wasn't discovered until season 9, episode 12. Am I correct? So that would be the episode, The Hot Rod. So this one took me a little bit of digging through, but there seemed to be, 2 spaces that were used. One was the space where we typically saw them make the recipe, and that was around from season 1. I remember in the episode The Star crashed through into the recipe room, and so we frequently saw that space where they had the still and with the copper coil and the whole thing, and they would often go in there and sample recipe. So then in the inspiration, although we sort of see Miss Mamie at times coming out of a room, we don't always see it, but there is a point where she's hiding away from John and Mary Ellen when they come to try and get her to go the doctor or to agree to do her cataract surgery when she seems to be in a small recipe room. And it's hard to tell. This one seems to be in a different part of the house, but they aren't accessing it from that secret panel that we finally see in season 9, when she accidentally hits a panel and goes into this old dusty recipe room that her papa had. So that is season 9, the hot rod, when they find that room. But so yeah, it's definitely a different recipe room. My take on it would be that it wasn't necessarily meant to be the one that was discovered, the secret hidden one, but that they just wanted a small contained space and didn't want to have to build out a whole room. So they just kind of created a little bit of a corner and put a still in there. Based on that, you're correct. It's not the regular recipe room, but what it is meant to be, I don't really know. But clearly in the hot rod in season 9, we see them literally move when the gentlemen come to dismantle the still, and they come and, as they're taking it apart, Miss Mamie and Miss Emily talk them into letting them keep the copper coil, and we see them sneak that copper coil down to the new secret recipe room that they discovered, which they accessed at that point off of a panel right by the front door. So there seemed to be different accesses, which I think just had to do with how much of the set they were reconstructing for the interior of the Baldwin's house and things like that. So, but good eye. Yeah, it's definitely a little different there. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and Ask Judy. I will be back with more and happy to answer your questions. If you have one, please do put them in the comments below any video, any segment. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be about the episode that you put the comment under. I grab them from anywhere. So I'll see you next time for more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy, and hopefully more special guests. Till then, thanks for watching.